nomination on Tuesday. The vote will be throughout Wednesday, and then the results will be announced on Friday. At your request also, there are 2 peer-to-peer sessions, so without Brussels colleagues, where you will have a chance to discuss both key foreign policy discussions and also working methods. Throughout your week, we are here to support you. There will be an IT corner for people who need to print, to charge, to connect. There's also a little back office as well if you need, so please don't hesitate to come to us for any logistical purposes. Maybe one word still in terms of communication. We encourage you indeed to communicate. You will have seen the HRVP's message yesterday, also in announcing the conference. Please communicate in line with the social media guidelines we have given you, but please, please, please also respect again the Q&A on which we want to preserve really the integrity of the discussion. So remain discreet for this part. It's all Chatham House rules while we're here. Last message, please double-check the final versions of your programme so that you're here on time. We can start and be efficient throughout the week. There may be changes again depending on what's happening in the world, so please double-check that you have really the final versions. We will be here for the first 3 days. We will be back here also on Friday. In between, as you've seen, for the regional sessions, there will be some in the Borchette, just also for old time's sake, for those who know the venue. With this, I leave you to enjoy the week, and I welcome the HRVP, please, for your opening remarks. HRVP, thank you for being with us.
Good morning. It's great to see everybody here, and it gives me great pleasure to open our annual EU Ambassadors Conference. So welcome everyone in Brussels, but also those who can't join us today in person and are connecting remotely. We had to organise this option last minute for our ambassadors in the Middle East and Gulf who could not travel or leave their post. And this is the real sign of times that we are living currently. Iran's subsequent attacks sow terror in the wider region with missiles and drones that unfortunately Ukraine has known for years already. If anyone was not feeling it before, then we feel it now that we are at the turning point. The premises that have guided global affairs for decades can no longer be assumed, be it in politics or international law. In this context, to advance the European Union's interests, it is critical we look at the wider perspective. That is why, and what we will also seek during this conference over this week. As we reflect in our programme for the next few days, there are many angles to consider, from economic security to human rights. And in addition to the interventions of the Presidents Costa, von der Leyen and Metsola, we will also have many external guests to discuss these topics with. And I'm really glad to be here together with you. You represent Europe in the world today, but also what Europe can be in the world tomorrow. And at the time when growing Europe's geopolitical power has never been so important as it is right now, you are truly our greatest asset. So let me thank you for your engagement, dedication and commitment to serving Europe. I hope you find this week encouraging, stimulating, and I look forward to the exchanges that we have over the course of the days. So with this, I declare officially the EU Ambassadors Conference open.
No, sure, Eva. Good morning, everybody. It's a great honor for me to see you all. Thanks a lot, the High Representative, the Kaja, for welcoming everybody. President Metsola is on her way, so if you can bear a few minutes quiet on your desks, on your seats, then we will welcome her. And, you will see more of me the rest of the week. I'll be trying to do a bit of the moderator. We know the President Metsola will take a couple of questions. I know a couple of you have already indicated their wish to put their questions. I'm not sure yet if President von der Leyen will be taking questions. I'm in touch with her team because she might be pressed on time. So I will let you know closer to that. And we will keep you informed through the morning. But now, please bear with us because we need to check if she's here. I think our High Representative was so efficient. That was excellent, excellent. Her true to herself. But voila, I'll leave you a few minutes to rest, and then we'll welcome the President. Seat. Okay. Good morning. Good morning, dear President. So it is my honor to introduce to all of you Madam Metsola, the President of the European Parliament. I think many of you have had the honor of hosting her during her visits. I guess less than she wished because the agenda is very busy. But we are very honored that she's here with us as the first keynote speech of the conference. President, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Nice to be here. Nice to start a Strasbourg week in Brussels. Nothing better. So, High Representative, dear Kaja, dear ambassadors, dear colleagues, thank you for giving me a few moments of your time this morning. I would like to start by saying that we should not understate how serious the situation is, how crucial our next steps will be, or how important a role Europe will need to play. Every week, it seems, we are faced with a new geopolitical challenge, and we, as Team Europe, cannot be found wanting. Kaja and I sometimes, meet early in the morning and wonder what this week would bring to us, and how, when we found ourselves in these positions, how important it is that we work together. We are in a new world, a more unpredictable world, a more dangerous world. And for a union that operates very well on predictability and on certainty, the last months have been difficult, to put it mildly. In this new world, we no longer have the luxury of time to take decisions in the way we have always taken them. and expect the world to understand. We need to start to see the world as it is rather than how we wish it to be. Meaning that where decisions need to be taken faster, we need to take them faster. And where a decisive stance or action is required, we need to take it without hesitation. We need the courage, I would say, to free ourselves from the habits that too often hold us back and pull in the same direction. Our message to the world is that they should not underestimate Europe's resolve, strength and willingness to act. We need to allow Europe to be seen as the credible actor that it is. Nowhere is that urgency clear or more clear than in our sustained and consistent support for Ukraine, where we understand that Europe's commitment as we enter year 5 since Russia's illegal invasion must match the level of the threat, and the threat remains clear, it remains present, and it remains very real. Ukraine knows that they can rely on Europe as they keep up the fight with immense courage and pride. And as we try to find paths to peace, our position remains unchanged. It must be a real peace, with integrity and with dignity, based on the principle that nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, and certainly nothing about Europe without Europe. But we are only as strong as the next crisis, which is why how we continue to respond, and I will shift now to what is unfolding in Iran, is so important for Europe to get right. The events of the past 9 days have finally cracked open a window of opportunity for change. But they have also exposed how far a desperate regime clinging to the remnants of power is willing to go. Iran's attacks on the Gulf, including in the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf of Oman, they are condemnable, they are unjustifiable, and they must stop immediately. Just as every member state must know for certain that we will stand together to face down any threat. And in this regard, we must continue to stand with the people of Iran. Their fight for freedom and the ability to choose their own destiny is not political, but existential. And let me point out that rarely do we see unanimity in our chamber. But our resolutions on Iranian protests have in the last years always come as close to that as possible. The Gulf countries are important strategic partners in these efforts. When I visited the United Arab Emirates for the EU GCC speakers meeting last year, we discussed between us the very risks that are now unfolding across the region, and it's as if to underline the urgency of those conversations, the Iranian regime attacked Qatar during that very visit. That is how quickly theoretical threats become real. It is the same conversations that we've had on our European neighbourhood. I don't think I have spoken to a single head of state, government or ambassador who does not agree with criteria-led merit-based enlargement as a geopolitical necessity. And yet, the Western Balkans, Ukraine, Moldova, they have been looking to Europe for years. Some have reached important milestones and are looking to us to match their reforms with a response. I've said this before, but it bears repeating. The longer we drag our feet, the more space we leave for others to fill in the void. Now, Parliament has a critical role here in building legitimacy for the decisions that we take in all contexts and across the globe. And in this, of course, we cannot begin to have a serious discussion about strengthening our neighbourhood, our immediate neighbourhood, without resetting our relationship with the United Kingdom. I was in London a few weeks ago, and from our meetings with the Prime Minister, Speaker and members of Parliament, I can say that the mood was extremely positive. For the first time in a decade, if you will, there is a shared awareness that this is the moment to build new bridges, a real willingness to find pragmatic solutions that respects the decision of the British people while responding to the realities that we face today. And there is a window of opportunity to find a way forward that may not exist in perpetuity, and we should do well to seize it now. It is also that spirit that needs to guide the new transatlantic relationship. We have our disagreements, sometimes loudly, but the alliance will remain the backbone of our common security and trade. In the words of Thomas Jefferson, every difference of opinion is not a difference of principle. And that, in my view, is what our transatlantic alliance is about. It is why it endures. That is not to say we should be naive or that we should not be open-eyed to today's reality, because we must and we will continue to adapt to the best interests of Europe. Now, when I addressed this conference last year, I said that when you look to the European Parliament, you will find a reliable partner. And that has not changed. And I met a lot of you in run-up to today, and I promised to be candid, and I will continue to be candid in that vein. The next steps are far too important for us to get caught up in institutional divides. I understand that we each have our own channels, but a real Team Europe moves in tandem, not in parallel. I don't want members of the European Parliament at your heels. I want them to be by your side, because that is how we project through European strength across the globe. It was members of the European Parliament who led the difficult path to designate the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organisation. It was members of the European Parliament who championed the idea of Ukraine's EU membership. They have built bridges everywhere with Moldova and the Western Balkans. They're engaged in Latin America and Asia and in Africa. And through our parliamentary networks with 160 national parliaments, our job is to pass messages and our job is to open doors. Trade agreements go through national parliaments, parliaments that we negotiate with and engage with every day. Our capacity building initiatives, democracy support work, inter-religious dialogue efforts and EU election observation missions around the world, these earn the European Union and Team Europe credibility and respect. In international fora like the G7 and the G20, our relationships with lawmakers help move the European agenda forward. And our commitment to parliamentary diplomacy is only getting stronger. It is the reason why we made strategic choices to boost our presence in Washington, in the Western Balkans and in the Eastern Partnership countries, and why we have antennas in Latin America, in Asia, Africa and the United Nations. They are not extra. They are critical and they need to be seen as such, where ambassadors recognise their value and ability to open doors, because that is where Europe delivers the best. And I've seen it on the ground, how good it can be when we deliver at our best and where we are best regarded. I want to end on a hopeful note. I have no doubt in our collective ability, and here I turn to you, to meet this moment in history of embracing that which only Europe can do across the world, of understanding our power in promoting value-based leadership, in supporting liberty, equality of opportunity, the rule of law, and how when we cooperate we all win, in showing people in accession countries that their hope is not in vain, that our 12 stars mean as much to us as they mean to them. There is a reason why more and more countries wish to join the European Union. There is a reason our enemies have invested so much in undermining our way. There is a reason that people on the streets of Iran look to us. why elections in the Western Balkans are won and lost on the promise of Europe. People believe in Europe. Europe still means hope. Sometimes we just need to see it within ourselves and remember that away from resolutions, conclusions, reports and institutional relations, we matter to people. Do not underestimate the importance and the impact that you all do for people. So thank you for flying our flag around the world. Let's keep building. Let's keep building together.
Good morning, everybody. If you might sit down and be quiet. Thank you. Such a disciplined group. It's still Monday. Let's see how the weekends. But again, good morning, everybody. It is my privilege now to introduce the President of the Commission. We're very grateful that in her very busy agenda she's made time to be with all of you this morning. So with no further ado, I give the floor to the President of the Commission, Mrs. von der Leyen.
Thank you very much, dear Kaja, dear Secretary General Belen, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. It's such a pleasure to once again see so many of you in this room here. And I would like to start by thanking and paying tribute to all of those who could not be here in person. And I'm thinking in particular of those posted across the Middle East, working around the clock to get European citizens back home, to liaise with our allies and partners in the region, and to keep our own staff and their families safe. So I think from this room we can tell them, you represent the very best of our diplomatic corps and the very best of Europe. And I start with the Middle East, not only because of the gravity and the speed of the conflict there, but also because of what it tells us about the world and how Europe and its foreign policy fits into that. You will hear different views about whether the conflict in Iran is a war of choice or war of necessity. But I believe this debate partly misses the point, because Europe must focus on the reality of the situation, to see the world as it actually is today. And I want to be clear, there should be no tears shed for the Iranian regime. This regime has inflicted death and imposed repression on its own people. They slaughtered 17,000 young people. And this regime has caused devastation and destabilization across the region through its proxies armed with missiles and drones. And many Iranians inside the country and across Europe and the world have celebrated Ayatollah Khamenei's demise, as have many more people across the region. They hope that this moment can open a path towards a free Iran. And I think the people of Iran deserve freedom, dignity, and the right to decide their own future, even if we know this will be fraught with danger and instability during and after the war. And beyond this, we can now see a regional conflict with unintended consequences. And the spillover is already a reality today, whether on energy or finance, trade or transport, or the displacement of people. British military bases have been targeted in Cyprus, who I want to reaffirm our full solidarity with from this place. NATO troops have been called upon to shoot down a drone. Our citizens are caught in the crossfire. Our partners are being attacked. And I've been in touch with many of them across the region to express our solidarity and support. And the longer-term impact is already posing existential questions on the future of our international rules-based system, on how Europe finds unity in this situation. All of this shows how precarious the global situation is today, how diverse threats are, and how Europe will always be affected by what happens around the world. So the idea that we can simply retrench and withdraw from this chaotic world is simply a fallacy. I believe it is vital that we understand that this will shape our foreign policy for years ahead. Dear ambassadors, over the course of this year's conference, you will hear many descriptions of the state of the world, whether it is about middle powers or multipolar disorder. You will discuss the importance of the rules-based international system and, of course, the urgent need for its reform. You will exchange ideas about national security and economic security. All of this will feed into our work, in particular ahead of the new European security strategy that we are working on with the HRVP and our diplomatic service. But at the same time, these attempts to label today's world mask two tangible and structural realities which are far from important for Europe. The first is that Europe can no longer be a custodian of the old world order, for a world that has gone and will not return. We will always defend and uphold the rules-based system that we helped to build with our allies, but we can no longer rely on it as the only way to defend our interests, or assume its rules will shelter us from the complex threat that we face. So we need to build our own European path and find new ways of cooperating with partners. The second is that we need a clear-eyed, hard look at our foreign policy in today's world, both in how it is designed and how it is deployed. We urgently need to reflect on whether our doctrine, our institutions, and our decision-making, all designed in a post-war world of stability and multilateralism, have kept pace with the speed of change around us. Whether the system that we built, with all of its well-intentioned attempts of consensus and compromise, is more a help or a hindrance to our credibility as a geopolitical actor. I know this is a stark message and a difficult conversation to have, but I also know that many of you have felt this tension in your everyday work. The point is that if we believe, as I do, that we need a more realistic, a more interest-driven foreign policy, then we have to be able to deliver on it. And that is at the heart of my message today. Dear ambassadors, Europe has already moved a long way in this direction in the last few years. We have become more adept at using our strength in the pursuit of our interests, our market, our trading reach, our economic security levers. We have stood up forcefully when our member states were challenged, for instance, with Denmark in the case of Greenland. We are investing in our democratic resilience at home to counter foreign information manipulation. And above all, we have started a generational project, and that is European independence. The goal is to make ourselves more resilient, more sovereign, and more powerful. From defense to energy, just these days, from critical raw materials to strategic technologies. Your work to deepen, de-risk, and diversify our partnerships around the world is invaluable to this. This is what independence looks like in today's world. It means not relying on a singular supplier for vital assets, from energy to defense, from semiconductors to vaccines, from clean tech to raw materials, just to name a few. And for this, we need more connections with reliable, trusted partners, from the trade deals to the security partnership that you have helped broker. This is already making a real difference. But we need to go further. We need to be prepared to project our power more assertively. For instance, to counter aggression and foreign interference with all of our tools, whether economic or diplomatic, whether technological or military, or by being much more pragmatic when it comes to doing business around the world. As I have traveled around the world, I've spoken with many of you who have made exactly the same point. Europe needs to get on to its front foot and start seizing the opportunities that are out there. Almost 2/3 of global growth is happening outside the United States and China. Countries across all continents are looking for their place in the world. They don't want to be part of any sphere of influence. They just want to be prosperous and sovereign. And this is why they are diversifying their trade relationship. Because they are too hedging against dependencies. From Central Asia to the heart of Africa, from Latin America to Southeast Asia, vast parts of the world are looking for stability and trusted partners. And this is our hallmark, our European offer. So as we look ahead, we must continue to seize these opportunities, putting our interest front and center of our work. And there are 3 areas where I think this is particularly important. My first point is security and defense. Europe has peace at its core. It is at the heart of our treaty and at the center of our history. It remains an enduring mission for each and every one of us. In order to seek peace in today's world, Europe must be able to project power, to deter, to counter, and to increase our influence. In simple terms, we need to invest in means to protect our territory, our economy, our democracy, basically our way of life. And this will be at the heart of our new European security strategy. In all our assets and policies, we must mainstream security considerations. In fact, security must become the organizing principle of our action. It must be the default mindset, from defense to data, from industry to infrastructure, from technologies to trade. And of course, we do not start from scratch. We have done more on defense in the last year than in decades before. As you know, we have started a surge, a massive surge in defense spending, up to 800 billion euros until 2030. and member states are stepping up their investment at record levels. The message is clear. Peace and security in Europe depends upon us, and we are taking full responsibility for it. But standing on our own feet does not mean standing alone. We also want to work with trusted partners around the world. And this is the core idea behind the security and defence partnerships with countries from across the world. We have opened SAFE, our programme for joint procurement, to Canada. We are looking into integrating our defence value chains with India. Our work is progressing well with Australia. Our union has engaged in this kind of security cooperation, but never at this scale. Now, some may say we are stepping out of our comfort zone, or others argue that we should focus only on what is happening on our own borders. But the threats we face come from all directions and all domains, whether cyber or space. So this truly 360-degree approach to our security must continue to drive our work. The point is that the world around us is changing at incredible speed. And now Europe is changing too. Dear ambassadors, when I talk about security, we must talk about Ukraine, a proud European nation that continues to fight for our freedoms, both as a future member of our union and as Europe's first line of defence. And my message here is very clear. Europe will always stand with Ukraine, no matter what is happening elsewhere. We all want this horror and bloodshed to end. And no one wants more peace than the people of Ukraine. But the war must end in a way that does not sow the seeds for future conflicts. And this is what we continue to work on every day with Ukraine and with our partners to deliver real long-term security for Ukraine so that we can secure a full, just and lasting peace. And what Ukraine needs now is, first and foremost, sustained financial support. As you know, this is why we proposed a 90 billion euro loan to finance Ukraine's needs. And you have all seen the challenges we have faced in getting this over the line, even after all 27 leaders have agreed to it. This goes back to the point that I made earlier about whether our system is still able to deliver efficiently. But I can assure you that we will, in this case, deliver on our commitments because our credibility and, more importantly, our security is at stake. So for us is paramount and crystal clear, we will deliver this 90 billion euro loan. And the same logic applies to enlargement. There's been much debate on how we deliver in a timely manner on its merits-based process. But it is of paramount importance that we get ready by bringing the Western Balkans, Moldova, Ukraine, closer to our union already now. Enlargement is not about ideology. It is a matter of European common interest and security. And we must be ready to deliver as soon as the time comes. Dear Ambassador, the second priority is trade and investment with the world. Because trade is not just economics, it is power. You all know the list of new trade deals we struck because you have contributed to writing it. We started with Mexico, Switzerland, Indonesia, then Mercosur after 25 years of failed attempts. And then the mother of all deals, India. Australia is next. And we haven't finished. The world wants to trade with Europe. Whether it is the Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, the United Arab Emirates, or 5 countries in Eastern and Southern Africa, our trade network has never expanded so fast. And again, this is not ideology. It is about delivering for European families, European businesses, and European industries. Because open markets and reliable value chains make our economy stronger. And a stronger economy at home makes us stronger in the world. For instance, we are diversifying our value chains for chips and clean tech in countries like India. We are diversifying our supply of critical raw materials from Latin America, Australia, and more. Our network of agreements currently includes almost 50% of global GDP. And more than half of Europe's trade is within our own network of deals. This means our companies can have predictable, rules-based trade with more than half of the world. And we want to expand this community even more. For instance, by cooperating with the 12 members of CPTPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The point here is that there is a compelling business case for trading and investing around the world. Take Global Gateway. In the roughly 4 years since it was launched, we have already shot past our initial goal to mobilize 300 billion euros. And I'm convinced that we will pass the 400 billion euro mark next year. Because there is demand across the world for European investment. And the reason is simple. When we invest in clean energy value chains in North Africa, or in skills for processing minerals along the Lobito corridor, or in digital connections along the India, Middle East, Europe corridor, IMEC, or in local pharma industries across Africa and the Caribbean. When we invest in all these projects, it is crystal clear that both sides stand to win. Europe gains from stronger supply chains. Our partners gain sustainable investment in local infrastructure, in skills and jobs. And these are legacy jobs in new local industries. And this creates new markets for local companies and also for ours. It is a model that works. And this is why, in the next European budget, we have proposed to increase the Global Europe funding by 75%. The message is very clear. Global Gateway is all about mutual benefits. And it is a means to develop partnership and projects that advance our values. Think, for instance, about strategic projects such as the Trans-Caspian Transport Corridor. At first sight, its goal is to cut the overland journey between Central Asia and Europe from 30 to 15 days. But there's more into it. The corridor will also connect former enemy countries in the South Caucasus between them and to Europe. And just like coal and steel brought Europe together after World War II, this new corridor can make trade and cooperation the norm in a troubled region and be a route not just to Europe, but to peace. And my point is simple. In this region, as well as in Africa or the Middle East, our investments mean we have leverage and agency. Or look at the success of the Pact for the Mediterranean, which is revitalizing our partnership across the region. The point is we must turn our financial strength into the power to make a real difference. That is what a pragmatic, interest-driven foreign policy can deliver for Europe and for all of our partners across the world. Dear ambassadors, the third point I would like to make is about our diplomacy and how it can help deliver for Europeans. Our support to the United Nations and its charter is an essential part of who we are. Together with member states, we make the single largest financial contribution to the UN system, year after year. And you know all why. In a more conflictual world like ours, we need a rules-based global governance. Of course, the UN system also needs reform. And when traditional formats reach a standstill, we need to look for creative ways of addressing the most serious crisis of our times. Europe has always been ready to engage in innovative formats for diplomacy, be they quartets, contact groups, coalitions of the willing, or regional initiatives. And this is why we will continue to look at all ways to work together to deliver on our most pressing responsibilities and priorities. Most notably, the reconstruction of Gaza and peace for Palestinians and Israelis. Every new initiative should aim to complement the United Nations, not compete, nor replace it. We have made this very clear from the outset. And this only makes our engagement more important. But Europe cannot shape the world from the sidelines. We must engage to make our voice heard, protect our interests, and most importantly, to always bring our values to the table. As our foreign policy will change, this imperative never will. Dear ambassadors, I want to finish by acknowledging that there are many priorities, many regions, many countries that I have not mentioned today. This is not because our work there is any less important, but rather because I wanted to make a broader point about where we stand and about the very real choice that we face. There will always be a level of constraint on Europe's foreign policy because of geography or geopolitics. We have to accept that. And we have to be honest that we cannot solve every global issue or perfectly reconcile our values and our interests on each occasion. But what we can control is what guides our foreign policy and how we choose to conduct it. As I said here last year, I believe that we need to be much more assertive in pursuing our interests. This is what will help us seize the opportunities that you see in front of you every single day. But I believe that we also need to look very critically at whether our structures and tools are still fit for that purpose or for today's world. The situation in the Middle East is not a trigger for this. It is, in fact, a symptom of the wider issue, as was Greenland, as is Ukraine, and will be many more places in the year ahead. The point is that in times of radical changes like ours, we can either cling to what used to make us strong and defend habits and certainties that history has already moved beyond, or we can choose a different destiny for Europe. We can build a foreign policy that makes us stronger at home, more influential globally, and a better partner to countries around the world. A foreign policy that is a core pillar of European independence, that protects our interests and advances our values, not with nostalgia or by mourning the old world, but by shaping the new one. And therefore, I want to thank you again for your incredible work, and I want to conclude, as always, by saying, long live Europe. Thank you.
Colleagues, there will be more breaks in the course of the day. So I'm sure you will find a lot of opportunities to talk. Just a word of introduction on my side. I think the High Representative, the President already said it. We are very empathetic and very grateful to the colleagues who have stayed behind in the Middle East to hold the fort with everything that is happening, but also to Mariana, who stayed behind to prepare the visit of President Costa, and to Veronica in Kabul, who's stayed there, because there's also another crisis in Kabul, in case you hadn't noticed. So I know they're listening and they're trying to watch, so just to say that they're all in our hearts and in our minds. And without further ado, I give the floor now to our High Representative, and do note that this is just a speech. Tomorrow you will have a full session for Q&A. Thank you.
Dear ambassadors, it's really today day full of breaks, of course, right now, but I think it's good to mingle, to see everybody that we haven't seen each other for quite some time. We have been together for 1 year, and what a year it has been. The mandate started out promising unpredictability, but against all intuition, things are starting to feel more predictable. If only because we have become used to the feeling that Earth is shifting beyond our feet. This morning, you have already heard from the two presidents, with the third weighing in tomorrow. We all agree that the last months, and especially the last days, have enabled us to make out the contours of change quite clearly. Today's two preeminent global crises in the Middle East and in Russia's war aggression against Ukraine are directly related because they share a foundation, the erosion of international law. This escalated when Russia, a permanent member of the UN Security Council, invaded its neighbor with impunity. That did not go unnoticed. Instead, it sent a signal around the world that there is no more accountability for one's actions. The rule book has been thrown out of the window. Without restoring international law, together with accountability, we are doomed to see repeated violations of the law, disruption and chaos. We see this in the Middle East as we speak. There's also no end in sight for Russia's full-scale aggression in Ukraine. China has been preparing the ground for decades to reimagine the world in its own image. Conflicts in Africa, like in Sudan and DRC, show no sign of abating. And there is a fundamental reorientation across the Atlantic. Cumulatively, these trends point to a new world order characterized by competition and coercive power politics, featuring military powers who aim to establish and secure spheres of influence. We can already see the weakening of existing international norms, institutions and rules that we have built over 80 years. How we respond to this moment says less about the new dispensation than it does about us. Our degree of success depends on two things. That first, we deliver under our priorities, and that we rally international support. And this is where you come in. Starting with priorities, there are three, and there is much to be proud of in terms of achievements. First, Europe's defence, including our military, financial and political support to Ukraine. The reason is obvious. This is an existential question for us. To date, the EU is Ukraine's #1 supporter, with €195 billion since 2022. And this does not include the €90 billion loan support in the works. Our work to take down Russia's shadow fleet and fight foreign interference and information manipulation, FIMI, in Moldova, for example, are EAS success stories to be proud of. The war has compelled us to turn our attention to the protection of Europe, with some 40% of our CSDP staff and budget dedicated to our own continent. Thanks to our CSDP missions, both civilian and military, the EU is now the largest international presence on the ground in Ukraine. As for the aggressor, it is clear that Russia is not winning. Its army is bogged down and its economy in steep decline. Demographically, Russia is imploding. Indeed, the greatest threat Russia presents right now is that it gains more at the negotiation table and by cognitive warfare than it has achieved on the battlefield. And that is why, just as important as having a seat at the table, is knowing what to ask for when you are at the table. Russia's maximalist demands cannot be met with minimalist response. It's just common sense. If Ukraine's military is to be limited in size, Russia should be too. Where Russia has caused damage to Ukraine, Russia should pay. No amnesty for war crimes or crimes crimes of aggression, and return of the deported Ukrainian children. And this is under assumption that Russia wants peace. But the dark reality is that there are zero indications Russia wants to end the war. Saturday's massive strikes on Ukraine, which again killed many civilians, make this abundantly clear. On the contrary, everything we see points to the conclusion that Russia wants to expand the war. So we are also rearming to strengthen Europe's ability to defend itself. We do this bilaterally, but also together with our friends across the town over at NATO, by developing a stronger European pillar in the alliance. Deterring war is cheaper than fighting it. And for this reason, I'm also working together with the Member States and President von der Leyen on a new comprehensive approach to address all dimensions of European security, from economy to preparedness, from technological autonomy to defence-related issues. The second priority is the stability of our neighbourhood. Enlargement has been described as the Union's most successful foreign policy, extending the area of stability, peace and prosperity. It must remain merit-based. But in the current context, we need to step up the pace. Enlargement is a geopolitical choice. And it seems that our citizens understand this. We see from Eurobarometer data that more citizens support enlargement than worry about uncontrolled migration, for example. But it is up to us to keep telling the enlargement story. Enlargement is the antidote to Russian imperialism and a sign that the most ambitious multilateral project in history, the European Union, is here to stay. In our southern neighbourhood, there is just as much demand for Europe. What happens in the Middle East and Northern Africa, MENA, does not stay in MENA. There is a very public expectation that Europe is proactive here. As of 10 days ago, we are in a totally new situation in the Middle East. Another war brings uncertainty and chaos. Iran is responsible for decades of violence, and the fewer options Iran has to terrorize the region, the better. Iran's military capabilities are limited, and the regime is weaker than it ever has been before. But there is no clear trajectory how this war will end. Reports that Moscow and Tehran are working together to target US troops should come as no surprise. Ukraine, on the other hand, is offering help to defend our partners in the Gulf. That alone should tell you who your friends are. The EU is also taking action. We have activated our civil protection mechanism. Just this morning, 2 flights from fully financed by EU evacuated citizens from the region. We are providing consular assistance. Our naval operations, Aspides and Atalanta, have provided protection to the ships in the region. And in response to the need for drone interceptors, we are preparing a new initiative to become a matchmaker between Ukraine's industrial outputs and the military needs of the countries in the Middle East. And this is what we call solidarity in action. The Middle East stands to lose greatly from any drawn-out war. So do we in Europe, and so does the world. And that is why the European Union continues to call on all involved to exercise maximum restraint, protect civilians, and defend and respect international law. What we do know for certain is that peace is our clear priority. In Gaza, for example, thanks partly to our civilian missions, the EU is ready to provide practical help. Our third priority is partnering for ensuring Europe's economic growth. Economic strength is the basis for strong foreign policy. And this is what will always set us apart from the others. We have friends and we stick by them. We have just vastly expanded our free trade area in the world by virtue of agreements Mercosur and India, taking in close 2 billion consumers. 76 countries around the world are already covered by EU trade agreements, with upcoming deals for Mexico, soon hopefully for Australia and others. And partnerships are especially important today for Europe's endurance as a global force of good. And the more we can rally others behind working collectively to address collective challenges, the greater chance we have to overcome the forces seeking to bend the world at their will. Our offer to our partners is far broader today than it has ever been before. In the security sphere, we have a long-standing strategic partnership with NATO. But we also have bilateral agreements, including 9 security and defence partnerships with countries in Europe, Asia and North America. And later this week, I will sign the 10th with Australia and subsequent ones with Iceland and Ghana in the coming days. And there are many interested countries knocking at our door. A growing number of countries around the globe are seeking to diversify their partnerships to manage the heightened risk. Like us, they seek stability and collective action to address collective challenges. And like us, they have learned that dependencies make us weak and give undue leverage to those who seek to carve the world into spheres of influence. And like us, they understand that rules-based international order is vital to avoid inevitable anarchy and suffering the world would come from this. Dear colleagues, while the international demands are clear and the European response is understood, the very act of defining priorities implies that in some areas, functions and duties that we have worked in the past are less critical today. We are facing challenges unprecedented in the history of the European Union. This means we need to streamline our presence in the field toward greater relevance and to put our resources where they are most needed. We will be present, but in some places with a lighter footprint. This modernisation of our EU delegations network will go into effect with this year's rotation. The same goes for headquarters. As an organisation, we must become more agile, more flexible how we deploy staff, while being fully aware of the budgetary constraints. But what I do want you to do is circle it back to you. Because when everything boils down, you are still the greatest resource Europe has in the world today. You are essential for Europe to achieve its priorities and grow its geopolitical reach. So I want you to know how much I appreciate your work. The EU ambassadors heading our delegations, you are on the front line. You see the macro challenges I spoke of at a country level under a microscope in our relations with partners. Many of you operate in fragile environments, and some in the context of open conflict. You see firsthand how dangerous the world is becoming, and you deal with it on the spot. Like you, I take my duty of care very seriously. We stand ready to support and assist you, your staff and your families in difficult circumstances. I'm thinking today especially about those of you turning in from countries in the MENA region and Ukraine, as well as those who continue to serve the Union elsewhere in the midst of active armed conflict or extreme political pressure. In the current context, not only has your work become more relevant, but it requires more diplomatic skill, sophistication and savoir-faire than it did just even a year ago. In your work as flag bearers around the world, I want to draw your attention, and that of us here in headquarters, to 7 principles. And these are important guidelines for all of us serving the Union, whether at home or abroad. First, the name of our organisation is the starting point, the European External Action Service. So we must develop a bias for even stronger action. We all need to be faster in our procedures and in coming up with fresh ideas. Second, we must think big. I mean, think globally to look for opportunities where EU can act for the common good, but also for the EU's good. For instance, by the time my mandate ends, there will be 400 million more digitally savvy young people in Africa, all looking to engage. How can we harness this energy for win-win? Many of you already think big and can serve as an example to others. Third, we must occupy the space diplomatically. Build coalitions with friends, but also not so like-minded partners. Get out of our comfort zones. Listen to the concerns of others. This is currency for their taking our concerns into account. An example from Latin America. If we want others to hear our concerns on Ukraine, we need to acknowledge the regional concerns Haiti represents. This allows us then to reach out to countries when in need in their help in New York, Geneva, Vienna or Nairobi. We have to always nurture those relationships on a day-to-day basis. Fourth, we would all benefit from working more closely with colleagues. The one delegation approach is part of how best to use all the EU resources we are stewards of. So if you are posted to a country with other institutional members of the EU family, like ECHO colleagues or the EIB, embrace them as part of the team. But I also mean your colleagues within the region. Meet up with regional gatherings, draft joint reports, take long collective view, come up with joint prospects and proposals. I know this is well-entrenched best practice among colleagues working in Europe and Central Asia. And fifth, we need to communicate with verve, with style, in a way that touches the hearts of your host country nationals and officials alike. Use our considerable soft power and tell the European story, what the EU does for the country. Involve the member states whenever possible. Many of you already do this, and very well, I might add. I know of the issue of the communications budget, and I'm confident that progress has been made. We must promote what we do. 6, let's not forget the strands of our DNA, made up of human rights and international law. You are not only our ears and eyes in the field, but also our hearts. We need to speak out with confidence in support of our principles, but with understanding, humility, and also an offer of support. And I don't only mean the colleagues working in multilateral missions, but everyone around the globe. 7th, and finally, a special message for those of you serving in countries with the CSDP mission or operation. It is personally important to me that our CSDP and delegations colleagues continue to work hand in hand. Your functions differ, but the aim is the same, to put our best foot forward for the country, but also for the European Union. Dear colleagues, the first year is behind us, and the coming year promised to be no easier. There is a series of national elections coming up in many of our member states. The outcome of some of these might have an effect on our room for maneuver in external action. We would be wise to keep this link in mind. In addition, the next weeks will indicate where we are headed in the Middle East as well as Ukraine, to say nothing of the upcoming midterm elections in the United States. And then there are talks of our own multi-annual financial framework, where I hope we will keep the ambition for global Europe as it directly serves the European interests. But the growing list of challenges simply means that for maximum endurance we need to stay nimble. As the saying goes, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And I have complete faith in you to do this. Thank you.